I met Durwood. Yes, I did, just a clap and seal. And I've got stories to tell, pictures to prove it, and witnesses. So he's gonna have to get his little pipe out and smoke it today, I think. All right, we're gonna be down some moderation because Damien is back with Please Bring Me Home, and there is a lot going on with them and different searches. And he cannot be everywhere at once. So I'm gonna have to probably close that curtain in a minute, but we'll see. So those of you who were at the vigil and were so kind to my face, and then as soon as I walked away, had some things to say, like how you swear you're not like them. Oh, yes, you are. Someone's always listening, and they always report it back to me. So come on in and say hi so I can block your ass. All right. So, as I said before, the vigil was really nice. It was great to see so many of Malehya's family and friends there, including Cindy and Cheryl. The one thing that bothered me a little is that they weren't spoken to before uh, the event started. Um, they weren't asked to speak before the event started. Cindy was incredibly emotional throughout. It was very difficult to even witness. In particular, Darren Geddes, because we all know that the RCMP have stated that there has been numerous um, tips sent in, misinformation. Um, and I'm pretty confident that he's one of the biggest sources of that. So it was very upsetting for a lot of people to see him there, including Cindy and Cheryl and myself. And in fact, it was requested to the RCMP that he be removed, but because it was a public event, they couldn't do so. Yes, Cheryl. Nothing was mentioned about them coming up to speak until they were put on the spot, which Cindy was actually crying at the time. And we know that Cindy doesn't like to be on camera, yet she still went on camera and placed items, toys at the lighthouse. And she was incredibly brave because to see Darren attempt to steal the show of two missing children was not only in bad taste, it was actually truly disgusting. Truly disgusting. Um, especially in light of what I know now. Mm. So there was a good turnout. Um, as I said, it was great to see um, Cheryl, Angeline, Cindy, friends, Christine and Rig. A lot of people made an effort to come from far to be there. We even had some Mi'kmaq women, bless them for coming out as well to show their support for Malaya and the children. Um, I introduced myself to everyone that was there that wanted to be introduced to. I spoke to Kent. I shook his hand, said we're all on the same team. Um, he was cordial. I'll leave it at that. Um, I offered my hand out to Darren. I said, "Hey, Darren, nice to meet you." Darren stared at me with the most disdain you could possibly imagine and looked me up and down and walked away. So that was interesting. Um, a lot of people put a lot of effort into the rally and AKA the vigil. Lots of people provided coffee and snacks, tea, stuff for the children, and there was people of all ages there. A lot of supporters of my channel were there, which was great to put faces to a name. Some people pretend to be supporters of the channel, and then when I walk away, have nothing but nasty things to say about me. But I'm so grateful for everyone that was around that decided to tell me afterwards. So that's good. Um, so yeah, I've seen a lot of people trying to come down on Malaya's family for not coming up to speak. Would you want to stand next to Darren, one of the men who has accused you openly of being responsible uh, for taking the children, and speak about your grandchildren when you are extremely upset and irate? And I didn't feel it was my place to do so. I've made my feelings quite clear about some of the people involved in this case. And after the discussion I had had with Darren, there was no way in hell I was going to stand next to him and speak. I was going to ask to speak, but I actually had to walk away from the vigil at one point because I was extremely, extremely upset. Um, and because it was supposed to be about Jack and Lilly, um, I didn't want to say anything I would regret. So I chose to speak to CTV instead, alongside Cheryl and Angeline and Christine, because everyone's going to see that. Everyone's going to see my opinion there. Um, so we did speak. We just didn't speak on Kent and Darren's terms. We spoke on our own terms. Um, so that being said, I would say the best part of the vigil was, in fact, the rally, where the street was actually um, the street was closed down, and we took to the streets and with our banners and placards and stopped traffic with the help of the RCMP, which was very awesome for them to do because it was unplanned. Um, just to make all of the residents and people coming through Stellarton aware that this is something that people are not going to forget about. I personally actually found it uncouth, unsavory, unkind to openly criticize the RCMP uh, while standing in front of the RCMP about them not disclosing what theories they have squashed, especially coming from people who are involved in some of the theories. Because, I mean, if you were involved in the disappearance of two children, wouldn't you want to know what the RCMP are not investigating? The reason why I called this episode "The Walls Are Closing In" is going to become perfectly clear as we go on. So there was a lot of misinformation that has come out from various sources over the last few days as to what um, happened and what didn't happen. So I went to introduce myself to the two lovely Mi'kmaqi women that turned up and showed their support. I thanked them for being there and thanked them for showing support for Jack and Lilly and Malehya. When I walked away, Darren walked up to these lovely ladies and started talking to them. Now, I'm pretty good at maintaining composure. Um, but I was pretty upset to see him talking to the Mi'kmaqi women. So while he was talking to them, I walked over to the three of them and I just happened to mention to Darren, since he didn't want to talk to me, I thought I'd use this opportunity with some middle grounders um, to have a little discussion. It got a little spicy. So my first question to Darren in front of these lovely ladies was, do you still believe the children are being hidden on a reserve? What do you think his response was? I'll give you a second to ponder. His response was, I never said that. I never said that. And I said, really? Because I have recordings of you saying that the children were hidden on the reserve. I have screenshots of you saying that. Mm. He didn't like that very much. He then proceeded to say, I think, and I said that Malaya's family is responsible for taking the children and hiding them. Well, then doesn't just bless her little heart Cheryl come up behind me. Cheryl, I wish you were here right now to tell your side of the story. So Cheryl came up behind me and she said, well, I'm Malaya's family and we don't have the kids. And no, I know, but I wish you were up here, Cheryl, with your voice telling your version of the story. So I'm just not saying it on myself. Um, and then he proceeded to call her a fucking little liar. And then I said, well, the only liar here is you. And he said that I've done nothing but libel and slander him, that I called him a child molester, which I never did. I think you will find that that was AB. Mm. He also said that I accused him of having syphilis, but Brooks takes credit for that. But I did say to him, well, that would explain your nose. He didn't like that either. It was about that point where his head started to go really red, like it might turn into a tomato and pop off of his shoulders. And his nose started bulging, and he turned around and said, "It's not syphilis, it's rosacea." Point where my ears started to close off, and I started to tune him out because he was extremely agitated, and, I didn't wanna be around to see how it was gonna unfold with the Mi'kmaq women. 'Cause they looked like rather strong, independent women that probably could have, in theory, dragged him into the bush and taught him a few lessons, and not in the kinda way he woulda liked. And in fact, I believe as I walked away to get some zen, I turned around and there was Nova. I gave her a hug and then went for a little walk. Then I walked up to the RCMP and said, "Why is this guy here? How is this man allowed to be here? He has been the biggest source of online misinformation out there." Mm, yeah. And it was funny because, as I'll show you in the video, um, Corporal McKinnon mentioned it as well. Not directly at him, but you could feel like it might have been directed at him. Um, so then he went back to go sit at his picnic table after the Mi'kmaq women had a few strong words with him, and they also went and spoke to the RCMP and asked for him to be removed. And they told them that it was a public place and they couldn't remove him unless he did something, which we all were hoping he might. Cindy asked the RCMP what was he doing there and to get rid of him. Cheryl did. I did. The Mi'kmaq women did. And wouldn't that man not take a hint? Didn't he just want to be right up at the front? Right up at the front, next to Kent, sitting at the table with Belinda, poisoning her ear. Because you know he wants to know who knows what. He wants to know what people are saying, what the theories are, so he can get ahead of it. Just like someone else we know. Oh. So as you can imagine, how difficult it would be for Cindy to stand there and watch Darren posy up to other family members with a double placard on, one in the front, one in the back, saying justice for Jack and Lilly. How difficult it might have been for her to stand there and look at this man. Ocean breeze. Welcome to the club. Take a seat, have a smoke. So, before I go through the pictures, I'm gonna say that the highlight of the evening, which obviously rattled Darren to no end, was Cindy and Belinda, which nobody is talking about, which baffles me, really. Cindy and Belinda and Cheryl and myself and Chelsea all came together. We all talked at length. Cindy and Belinda cried together, embraced each other, discussed how great it would be for everyone to work together. And in fact, Malaya offered Belinda again to sit down and talk about the case and to keep an open dialogue with her. I don't think Darren liked that very much. And in fact, Cindy had a visor with the children, Jack and Lily, on the front for the car, and she gave it to Belinda. It was very hard to watch. It was very emotional, and I had some good conversations with Chelsea. I had some great conversations with Chelsea's niece. I had some conversations with um, Chelsea's husband. I had conversations with Corporal McKinnon. There were some very good conversations that took place, and in fact, there was actually some new information that came out of the vigil. So, after the rally, after the coming together of the families, which some people do not want to happen, and you need to ask yourself, why are people trying to divide grieving families? Ask yourself why people would want to keep the families from communicating. I think I have respect for Belinda. I understand where she's coming from. She just wants answers. But my personal opinion is that she is surrounded by toxic people. Not surrounded, not surrounded. She has a few extremely toxic, manipulative, dangerous people putting ideas in her head. That's my opinion on that. So, despite everyone's effort to keep the families separate and fighting, we left the vigil as a unit. So there was Cheryl, Cindy, myself, Angeline, Christine Inrig, Lori, Bruce, Belinda, Belinda's niece, Belinda's sister, and we all went out and searched an area together. After information was received through the vigil, it was immediately passed on to RCMP. So after that search, as an incredible group of people, all for the same cause, we were heading away from the search site. Wouldn't you know, we're going to get to Tint now, because there's some stories going around about us being Scissor Sisters, and Scissor Sisters are a great band. I love the song Take You Out All Night. Hint, because we're in the middle of, well, I guess the border of Cumberland and Pictou County. You don't see too many blue Teslas with an Ontario plate. Do you know? Not out there, you don't. No sirree, Bob. So we were pulling away to head in the direction he was traveling. And Christine actually knows Tint. They talk quite regularly, and he recognized her. She pulled up next to him and said, "Pull over." And he did. Christine was with Angeline. I was in a car with Cheryl and Cindy. And behind us was an ex-RCMP and another lady supervising. He graciously spoke with us all. And Cindy was a little agitated when she initially spoke to him. Understandably, she had some questions as to why he did what he did, explained her feelings and how hurt she was that people, including Tint, because of Darren, believed that Cindy was involved or any of her family. She expressed her pain and sorrow over the disappearance of the children and explicitly told him that they have nothing to do with it. He graciously, not the small little Korean that AB would like to think. AB, I don't think you would want Hins knocking on your door because his arms are about as big as your head. So you better keep that bat in your car that you said you would hit us with if we ever did that to you. It's not very nice. Almost sounds like a threat. Something tells me you'd never be able to not smoke long enough to get here. It's a pretty long drive. Um, so Tint actually got out of the vehicle, apologized to Cindy. He apologized to Cindy, offered her his hand, and said that that was what he believed back then, that he was, you know, given inaccurate information. He then, like I said, it was a little heated to begin with, but he then gave me his number, and we've been having chats. I haven't quite made my mind up yet, but he did the right thing. He apologized to Cindy, and he did the right thing. And we all went upon our merry way afterwards. And in fact, Tint messaged me thanking me for allowing them both to clear up their misunderstanding. And yes, it's all recorded because Mama records everything. But I don't need to share it because I'm sure Tint will say the exact same thing. I would like you guys to come up with another name for our little lady group. Seeing as AB is clearly homophobic and thought that it was a good idea to come up with Scissor Sisters for us ladies, you know, couldn't come up with something more original. Can can you guys come up with another name for us? I had one, but then I was told it wasn't appropriate. So, that was the day of the vigil. So, it was a very busy day. And yes, Darren, I saw the email you sent to Angeline. And no, you've got my name wrong, and so do you, Daleen, which makes your cease and desist null and void. You actually have to have the person's name correct on the cease and desist, and you actually have to send it to the right email. So, although you found my YouTube account, you actually sent a cease and desist to the wrong person. That girl must be freaking out. All right.